Hello again, I'm Stephanie, and welcome back to Texas Peach Knits. This is episode 3. Welcome back to Texas Peach Knits. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me again. If you're new here, I hope you find something to inspire you. You can find me on Instagram. I'm Texas Peach Knits, and my Gmail is texaspeachknits@gmail.com. Last episode, the mini episode, I gave out my Texas Peach stitch markers, and all of them were claimed and mailed to the winners. So thank you so much. I was so thrilled to be at 500 subscribers, and when I get to 1,000, I will probably do another giveaway. Today, I'm hoping to share with you my finished objects, my works in progress, a hand-spun project with a new tool. It's really not new to me, but I don't use it very often, so it's feeling a little new. Some future project planning, and at the end, a little bit of chat about our camping trip to South Texas. So first of all, I'd like to share with you what I'm wearing. This is a sweater that I finished last November. It is a custom sized garment from Ann Bud's Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters. So I chose to do the Raglan V-neck sweater, and in this book she has charts where you put in your gauge that you get with the yarn you have, and then it tells you based on your size how many stitches to cast on, where to change for the arms, and all those types of things. So the reason I wanted to do a custom knit with this yarn is it was a very special yarn. I bought it at DFW Fiber Fest and possibly back in 2018. I honestly don't remember, but let me see if I can find the little ball of it. So this was Miss Bab's Kilimanjaro yarn, and it is a 4-ply fingering weight yarn. The reason it's called Kilimanjaro is it comes in one giant skein. So it actually has 1,750 yards in a single skein. So this was the main thing I bought at Fiber Fest several years ago, and I knew I wanted to make it into a sweater because I love these colors. They're very beautiful and fallish. This colorway is called Soul Food, and being a redhead, I like to wear fall colors and orange. So this is 85% superwash blue face Leicester and 15% nylon. I had originally started like a t-shirt pattern from a Knit Picks book with this yarn, but it really wasn't turning out quite the way I wanted, and I didn't think I would be using enough of the yarn, so I pulled that out and knit it again. Now, one thing I noticed that even though this was all one big skein, the dyeing of it changed quite a bit from one end of the skein to another, which I didn't expect. This is the dark part, and when I stand up you'll see that there is a very much lighter bottom half, but I think it turned out okay for this sweater. I still really love it. My cuffs, I did a 1x1 rib at the end, but I don't know if you can see that. I started right here, and then I made like a V with it, so it kind of makes it kind of a different shape, and the bottom part is just like a little bit. So I did that on here too. I don't know if you can see that. And that was just something when I was getting to the end of the sleeves, I was bored and I just started kind of playing with my stitches. So I like how that turned out. So I'm going to stand up so you can see the whole sweater. It's just a very comfortable, like normal shaped sweater, and I felt like with this very busy yarn, it was a good way to kind of tone it down and make it really comfortable for wearing regularly in the fall. And because it's a light fingering weight yarn, it's not too heavy even for our Texas fall. So I'll stand up. This is the, it's like I said, it's a custom numbers, so I can't really tell you how to knit it yourself other than to get the book, but it's just normal. It's kind of like just a sweatshirt sweater, so it's very comfortable. You can see where the bottom half of the yarn got much lighter. There's more of this white pooling, and then the top half is this darker, more orangey color. So I don't know why the skein did that. I'm okay with it, but I am kind of glad the dark was at the top, because even though you think dark around the middle to decrease your waistline, I like all these oranges up near my face. So that's what I am wearing today, and this is all I have left of it. So I think I did a pretty good job using it up, and this, if I ever start a sock yarn blanket, will go into a memories blanket for me. Okay, so finished objects. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I was hurrying to finish my friend's baby blanket, and I finished it. So this is the Taffy blanket. It's from a yrds baby blanket book. I forgot to bring the book into our schoolroom, so if you go to a previous episode, you'll be able to see the cover of the book. So, but it is just a crochet baby blanket. It has these beautiful little medallions, and in the original pattern it had you do the whole thing in ivory, but I decided, since I had lots of leftover this is soft secret yarn from Hobby Lobby, I decided to use all my colors. And she had a little boy. He was born on Monday. He was 6 weeks early, but he's doing really well. We're just praying for him because he's still in the hospital, but he is growing and doing very well. I love these little squares, and I think when I was looking at it, I think this little center square is extremely similar to the Battenberg blanket square, which is a blanket that I've thought about knitting. And now I don't need the pattern because I can just use the square from this pattern. But so this has 6 colors from Hobby Lobby Soft Secret, and it's olive, I think this is butter, a tan, this is like light blue, I don't know, and Seafoam. So I just put them in randomly, and I'll stand up so you can see the whole blanket. It's a really good size. Okay, so this is the whole baby blanket, and it is nice and wide. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I spent a lot of time weaving in ends. This is the back. And I don't know if you've ever worked with this Simply or Soft Secret yarn before. It's like Simply Soft from Caron. The ends are so slippery, they just want to slip out. But I think it looks, gorgeous on both sides. So I am extremely happy with how this turned out, but it will be a while before I make another one with all of these ends to weave in. So that is, it's called the Taffy blanket, and it is by yrds, and I will put the name of the book either below or in the show notes. My next finished object, I actually don't have, the next 2 I don't have, but I'm going to put pictures in. I finished my daughter's Hermione Everyday Socks. I have the leftover yarns. This was with Premier yarn in the PAPRIKA colorway. And these are for my 11-year-old daughter. She has a size 8 women's US shoe size. And this is Deborah Norville Serenity sock. So it is a mix of 50% wool, 25% rayon, and 25% nylon. These were the same dye lot, so I knit them 2 at a time. But even though they were the same dye lot, the color changes were not equal. On one of them, it seemed like there was an extra row or two of one of the colors, and so on the leg of the sock, I really tried to match it up, and I would actually take some of the yarn out and tie it off. But then once I got to the feet, I didn't want to have all those extra ends to weave in, so I just let the feet do what they did, and I didn't worry about it. But I will insert, hopefully you see a picture now of my daughter's socks. I finished them while we were camping in South Texas, which I will talk about at the end of the podcast. She really likes them, and the reason that I don't have them is because she wore them for 3 or 4 days straight, and she has not done her laundry yet. And I gave up my daughter's laundry over the summer and told them they were doing it, so I'm not going to go find them and wash them for her. So yes, a picture will have to suffice. My final finished object is gone because a friend asked me to make it as a baby gift for one of her very special friends who had been trying to have a baby, I think, for a while, and just had her first baby, a baby girl. I made it out of this Cutest crochet creations. I left this price sticker because I like frugal things. I love half price books. If you have half price books in your area, I love going there to look for knitting books. So this is just like a crochet animal book, and I made Frankie the bunny pattern, but made a ton of modifications. So in this book, it looks like a little native bunny. Isn't that cute? But for hers, I decreased the size of the head, and in here, these are just feet sewn onto the front. I actually added legs so that they would stand up or sit down. So I modified the legs, and I modified the head, and I ended up having to modify the ears just a tiny bit because my pink yarn I used was larger than my brown yarn that I used, so I needed an extra row of the main color for the back of the ears, but it worked out really well, and I will share a picture with you while I continue talking about it. So this is just a crochet bunny baby gift. I used wool ease in the Camel colorway, number 125, and it just turned out really sweet. I only got these pictures kind of in the dim light, but I really like the way it turned out. And another friend liked the way it turned out, so she asked me if I could make another one, but even smaller. So I think I'm going to try making it with sock yarn next. And she wants it to be a tooth fairy bunny with a little sweater with a pocket on the front for her daughter to put a tooth in. So it was really important to me that this was machine washable. So I did use woolies. And this is the Camel colorway. I bought a few of these a long time ago. It really gave it a really kind of natural woolly feel, and I thought even though everyone tries to make super soft things for babies, I think babies just like textures in general, and so I thought it would be a good thing for baby to hold and feel, and you can throw it in the laundry. So that was my last finished object from last month. So as far as whips go, I was working on my Acorn Trails sweater and my daughter's Flower Child tee. I'm not going to show them to you today because I did almost nothing on them. I really want to finish that Acorn Trails sweater, but it just didn't happen last month because I was working on all those other things. And then the Flower Child tee, my daughter probably won't wear that until next summer, so now it's kind of on the back burner and I'll pick it up. I'm trying to do like one triangle of the front a month, but last month I only did half of one, so it will get done when it gets done. My next whip is with Anna's Knit Club. Anna Knitter, she has a podcast, and I've talked about her before because I really like her. She's so nice. And she, in October, the Anna's Knit Club did socks. So my Hermione's Everyday Socks were a pair of socks, and then I immediately started Anna's pattern, the Helgen socks, and this is them. If you remember, I am trying to make a pair of socks for every child. This is turning out much darker on camera. This is a navy blue, and then this is kind of a navy blue and kind of sea green. And the Helgen socks have this wonderful kind of scaly texture. So when you put them on, they stretch up and kind of grab your leg. So these are for my eldest daughter. She is 13. She wears a size 10 US women's shoe. So I was really grateful that Anna includes sizing charts where you can use her numbers to adjust the sock to fit different sizes. So I went one up from like the normal sock size, which still starts with 64 inches, but she gives you suggestions for the length. So if my daughter happens to not be around where I can make her try them on, I know what length to make them to still fit her foot. So that's really, really helpful. So I'll show you the yarns. This is the contrast color. I got this at a Tuesday morning several years ago. It's a navy blue. There, it looks more blue. So navy blue, and it's SRK on your toes. There's that little Tuesday morning sticker. I love finding treasures there. And this is a 75 superwash wool and a 25% nylon. And then the main color I actually got in a box of yarn at a Goodwill, which is a like a thrift store or a charity type shop if you're outside of the US. And it is this Premier Yarns Echo, and it is navy blue. Let me see if I can get it to. Come on. That's about the best I'm going to do, I think. It's like a navy blue, yellowish, greenish gold, and kind of like a sea green. And it has this little white thread that goes around all the yarn. So that means that this yarn is actually 68% superwash wool, 22% polyamide, and 10% cotton. And I think that's the white thread that goes around the yarn. This is a really nice sock yarn. It's very thick, so I feel like, especially with this pattern, they're going to be very warm. And these are actually kind of toned down for her, so happy to make her some socks. Okay, and I just have these in a bag that I made myself. I love it. I found this fabric at Joann's, I think last fall, and it's adorable. I love it, and I put just some orange ribbon to tie it up. So it doesn't have any like stiffness or interfacing. I kind of like my bags to be squishable so that I can stuff multiple bags in a larger bag, especially when we go on a trip. Okay. And lastly, I have a project that I can't show you, but I am designing a pattern. I'm not a pattern designer. I don't intend to like start an Etsy shop or start selling patterns or anything, but I decided I do a lot of designing for myself, and I've actually made a lot of Christmas stockings where I've put together all kinds of Fair Isle patterns, and I decided to design a pattern for the e-magazine Blocked, which if you haven't looked at it, I recommend you give it a look. I think there's lots of different things on the internet about it, but I mean, it's a good idea to just look at it yourself. But I'm doing a Christmas pattern that is inspired by Christmas stockings and Christmas carols. So I have, these are all Cascade 220, and I just had them in stash, and so I have a burgundy, a white, a light green, and a more medium or darker green. And if you're interested in that pattern, hopefully I'll be able to show it to you next time, but it will be free in the magazine Blocked, and I think you can follow that magazine on Instagram too to know when it comes out. So lastly is my hand spun, and I did not do any spinning this month. My wheel actually had a hinge fall off, and I went to the hardware store and bought a new hinge because it was kind of warped, and I have not fixed it yet. But in the meantime, I took out my Zoom Loom, and this is a kind of a revamped pin loom, and I got this for hand spun because it only uses about 8 yards of yarn, and I have, after you make hand spun, sometimes you have like little bits of odds and ends that didn't quite make it into the main skein, or maybe you knit something out of your hand spun and you have a little bit of leftovers, and so you need 8 yards for a square. And these are my little squares that I've made out of hand spun. And Anna Knitter in November is doing a square knit club, so the idea is just to make as many squares as you can. These are ones I made previously, and it's just out of different hand spuns. You really need to use between sport and worsted weight with the pin loom, but you can use fingering weight if you hold it double, or lace weight, and I haven't done that yet, but here's the loom, and it has a really ergonomic kind of edge, so it's easy to hold. It comes with this long needle, and it has directions with how to wrap your yarn, and then use the needle to do the weaving once you've wrapped your yarn. And so for her November prompt, I thought I would take this out and I would make some of my hand spun scraps into more squares, because eventually I would love to have a blanket out of them, and it would be a very precious, nobody touch it kind of blanket, which is kind of sad for a blanket. But so it has this little book that comes with it, and this has all the instructions, and it has a couple of little projects in the back. So it's just a little handy tool to use. Another one of my spinning friends told me about it, and I was so glad. So that's the Zoom Loom. And it's just really fun to use, and it's really easy to set down because this isn't really going anywhere. So it's easy to put away if you can't finish a square. So I was going to show you my little bag of leftovers I have. I'm going to try not to crinkle So here's all my little different hand spun leftovers. So maybe next episode you will see some of these as squares, so that would be great. So every time I have little bits, I kind of put it in here. Now we are getting to my projects I am planning. We are going on a trip over Thanksgiving to visit my little sister. She lives in Tucson, Arizona, and I decided to start a project for her. It probably won't be done, but I can work on it on the drive to see her while I think about being excited about visiting her. It's from this book, also from Half Price Books. It's called Sock Yarn Shawls 2 by Jen Lucas, and it just has some really nice basic sock yarn shawls. I love PDF patterns, but part of me just really likes having books of patterns so that I can, browse them on my shelf and pick things. So this pattern, the flow shawl, really reminded me of my sister, and I thought it looked kind of Arizona-y. It has a lace edge, and this is a short row kind of center area. So I have 2 yarn options for that, and I did ask her opinion. She told me which one she liked better, and then I told her this is something that you would wear, so if you wouldn't wear that, let me know, and I'll try to put together a different combination. So this is yarn that Michelle in Houston sent me after my first episode, and I'm oh so grateful because it is gorgeous, and I just love that I can make something special for my little sister. So my first option for this shawl, and the one that my sister said that she liked the best, is this 3 Irish Girls, which I have never used before, so I'm so thrilled to get to try this at some point. And this is the colorway Mauve, and I was going to mix it with this Knit Picks for the solid, and I can't decide if I would do the short row part around the neck in the variegated or the lace, because I don't know if the lace would be hidden more. I don't know, I'm gonna have to think about it. So this is Knit Picks Stroll Fingering and Eggplant, and it is so helpful to just have some solid sock yarns around to do some of these interesting patterns with. So that's the first option. The second option, it's also Stroll Fingering in the Sapphire Heather, which this is just beautiful. And this Lang de Pinto, and this is a 50% wool, 50% acrylic, and let's see here, I don't know what the color, oh, it has a color number, 1958, but it's kind of this tealy, sea green kind of colors. I think it goes really well. So this is the other option, which I also like. So if she gets back to me and says neither, I will come up with more options, but let me know which one you like. And I'm hoping to cast that on to work on for my drive to Tucson, because it is about 14 hours. The other project that I am excited to start, I found in this book, Knit, Fold, Pleat, Repeat by Nora Gone. And I found this at my library, which is a very frugal way to get knitting patterns. I was excited to see it. It was on the new shelf, and I just grabbed it. So I don't think I would actually buy this whole book. I was only really interested in a couple of the patterns. Some of them are very artsy, and while in my mind, I'm a very artsy person and I feel like I'm a go with the flow kind of free spirit, then my wardrobe does not necessarily reflect that, even though I wish it did. Like I wish I had this art teacher growing up that had just gorgeous artsy, you know, art teacher clothes, and I wish that I dressed more like that, but sadly I don't. But this book has a pattern that I absolutely love. It's called the And Squared. Doesn't this model just look so happy? She's like, I want to take this home. So the reason I love this is because it looks a little cropped, but it doesn't look too cropped. I love this higher neckline. I love this length of sleeves. I just think this would be so attractive over a dress or a skirt, which I do wear a lot. And I might knit 2 of them. But I have this cone of yarn that I had intended for a different project, but I think I'm going to use it for that. So this is from Webs. It's Brown Sheep Company, and it's the Nature Spun Fingering in the Blue Fog colorway. So it's just a really great neutral blue, and it's a light fingering, so I have to figure out if this will get the right gauge for that project. So I have a little bit of gauge swatching to do because I believe that project called for a fingering weight as well, but I feel like this is a very thin fingering weight, so I'm gonna have to do a gauge swatch. But I really want that sweater. So as soon as I finish, I'm just like, I need to finish some of these other things so I can start this sweater because I really love it. But I think I'm going to use this. I think I have enough. Maybe. It'll be really sad if I knit the whole thing and then I don't have enough. There's one other pattern in this book that I was going to show you that I also liked. And it is called Ladder. So this is just a little cropped sweater with long sleeves. I thought this would also be really pretty over a dress. And the back of the sweater looks like these 2 panels but together. So it has like a center ladder panel on the back. So I thought this was really pretty too. Nice structure. So I might make this one at some point, but not as quickly as the other one. So excited that my library invested in that book. Okay, so that is everything. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our camping trip. We went to Stephen F. Austin State Park. It's about an hour west of Houston. It was such a great state park. We are not big campers. We don't own tents. We do have some sleeping bags, but it's just a really nice way to kind of get away from your normal with your kids. And this park was awesome for young kids. My 5-year-old had no trouble on the trails. All of the trails were really well blazed, and we probably did 6 or 7 miles of hiking trails over the 3 days that we were there. We stayed in a little, it was called a cabin, and it had like wooden bunk beds and like those real industrial plastic mattresses. So not your best night's sleep, but I enjoyed not having to sleep on the ground, so I was very grateful for that. And it had a little fridge inside the cabin, so we didn't have to worry about our food in coolers. So sadly, there is a burn ban pretty much across the state of Texas because we've had such a dry summer. So we couldn't do a fire in the fire pit for s'mores, and you could use a gas grill if you brought your own grill. But when we go camping, we have a little 2-burner electric stove that we usually take, and we just plug that in and cook on that. And on the fire when we have, because just cooking over a fire is really fun. So we did that, and we did all the trails. And then often when we go camping, we don't stay in the cabin with bunk beds. We'll stay in what's called a screened shelter. And it's basically a concrete platform with like a screened in porch with a roof. And the reason we like that is we don't have to lug a tent, and we can set up like an air mattress on the concrete to make it a little more comfortable sleeping. But this time we stayed in the cabin, which was like, felt really special, but it was not glamping. So I don't want to give the impression that it was just like a 4-star hotel, because it was not. It was very rustic. But all the facilities at this campgrounds were wonderful. So if you live in Texas and you need like an easy camping trip with young kids, this was really a great option. And about 3 miles away from the state park is the San Felipe de Austin historical site, which is where they have reconstructed some of the town that was the first town founded by Stephen F. Austin when Texas was still under the control of Mexico. And everything in the town is touchable and movable and usable. So the little schoolhouse had slates that the kids could practice riding on, and they had some like of the types of toys kids would play with. They had a courthouse where the first Texas Congresses met, and they had on the desks like all kinds of journals and writing materials and like types of bags and briefcases and things for the kids to look through. So it was very hands-on. They had a working bake oven, and they had a tailor on site that day. Some days they have people in all the houses, and the day we were there, they just had a tailor. So he showed us some of their things. I did ask him about spinning and knitting because I saw a really large spinning wheel inside the museum. But he said that at that time they were really importing all of their fabrics. Very few people were spinning and knitting. They just imported all of their fabrics. But he did have some cotton knit socks, which I thought were interesting because, you know, cotton is really big in the South. And I wonder if those had been machine knit at the time. The children really enjoyed learning the history of the town. I got a little sad at the end of the movie that plays in the museum because the town had to be burnt to the ground so that Santa Anna's army couldn't make use of the building materials and the supplies when he was moving through Texas. So in the video, they talked about how the people who had built the town, they had built their offices and their stores and their homes. They were the people that had to burn their own homes and their own buildings ahead of the army. And it was really sad. And it was never rebuilt. And so what they've built there today is on the original plot of land where the town was. And now you can go see reproductions of what some of the places that would have been there were like. So really neat. I love being able to go on a trip or go camping and have some kind of learning adventure along with it. And I can count that as a field trip for our homeschool. So that's really helpful. But yeah, that's all we've been doing. And next time I'll be able to tell you about Tucson. I've never been to Tucson. I went to Phoenix when I was in high school, which is a long way to go from Georgia. And I actually marched in the Fiesta Bowl parade when I was in marching band. So I don't have very fond memories of that. I think it was, even though it was January, it was very hot in marching band uniforms. So I hope you have a wonderful November, a very happy Thanksgiving if you're in the US, and I will see you in December.